Hey fam, happy new month. How you all doing? Today's topic is on women versus tree. A man was asked if he would rather be stuck in the woods with a woman or a bear. He turned the question around and said that shouldn't be the question. Rather, he should be asked between a tree and a woman, who would he love to express his feelings to?
Or a bear. And
I think it needs to be a different question. So instead of the would you rather be stuck in the woods with a woman or a bear, because let's be honest, the threat of some men to women is an actual issue, and definitely take the bear. But for men, it should be, would you rather tell your feelings to a tree or to a woman?
Mic drop.
That question sparked a whole lot of reaction on TikTok. A lot of men came out to air their views. They gave their opinion. In most of the opinions aired by men, they were seen blaming women. They gave 101 reasons why they don't feel comfortable sharing their emotions, expressing their feelings to women.
Would you rather tell your deepest, darkest secrets to a woman or a tree?
Based off the number of self-unalivings we had last year in the U.S., I'm guessing that most men are going to pick the tree. Whether it's driving into it at 120 miles an hour or swinging from it.
Question of someone having to talk to. Just talk to. Not even the darkest, deepest secrets.
I'm going to go with the tree because trees don't leave.
A tree, and it's not even close. See, women have a certain script that they want you to follow as a man, and if you deviate from that script, they're going to punish you. They're going to throw it back in your face, or they're going to cut you off.
I would rather talk to a tree due to the fact of, like, I know how it feels to have my shit used against me all the time.
It's a tree. Would not tell me I'm wrong for feeling the way I'm feeling, or would not give me that look and say, really?
Why can't it be just let us be? Nobody wants to hear what we have to say anyway. Nobody's going to care about what we have to say. All anybody wants to do anymore is shove their agendas in our face and force us to do something that we really don't want to do.
Some men went further with the explanation. They said women cannot be trusted. If you share your emotions with women, if you express yourself to a woman, she's most likely to tell on you, most likely to share your secret with other people. She's most likely to judge you, give unsolicited advice, interrupt where you're talking, belittle you with the information you share with her, make you feel less of a man, use the information against you.
Woman or a tree?
You know, you can always count on Tammy to ask a great question, and this one may be the best she's ever asked. So would I choose to open myself up to a tree or a woman? The answer is very simple. The tree. And here's why. First off, the tree is going to provide guaranteed confidentiality. You see, a man knows that the tree isn't going to immediately go running to gossip about the secrets he just shared with its friends and family members. It isn't going to go posting whatever he said all over social media later on to mock him or get clicks and likes. No matter how juicy the details he shares, that majestic oak or pine isn't going to go around spilling the beans. The tree is also going to provide a judgment-free zone. It isn't going to judge the man for daring to make himself vulnerable. It isn't going to mock him or leave him or call into question his manliness or worthiness as a man simply because he has some issues that he's dealing with. You see, the tree is wise beyond its years. It's seen centuries of human folly and knows that no one is perfect, most especially those who sit in judgment of others for having emotions or feelings, opinions, or concerns, as almost all women do when a man dares to open up to them. Instead, that tree is going to provide a safe place for the man to vent. A place where that man can freely express himself without having to worry that whatever he says is going to be weaponized against him, not just now, but for years to come. And finally, that tree is going to show caring, concern, and patience with the man. Unlike women, the tree is actually going to sit and listen to what the man is saying. It isn't going to get all emotional or jump to conclusions. It isn't going to interrupt the man to tell him he's wrong, nor is the tree going to try and twist what he's saying and make it about them. The man knows that the tree isn't going to rush the conversation and try and get it over with because it doesn't like what he's saying or feels uncomfortable with the words he's sharing. The bottom line of it all, the tree is going to be the perfect partner, the one who isn't going to get bored or upset with the man or seek to destroy him for daring to make himself vulnerable or simply because he's a man.
From his rant, I think it's obvious that a lot of men expect women to stay mute, expect women to act like objects whenever a man tries to express himself or emotions to women. They don't expect you to ask questions, to give unsolicited advice, to give 2 cents. They don't expect you to interrupt them. Most importantly, they don't expect you judging them based on what they shared with you. If someone comes and tells you they steal and you're in a relationship with this person or you're married to this person, isn't that going to bother you? Are you not going to ask questions? Oh, are you still that kind of person, or have you changed? Are you not going to look back at the person's character and see if you're going to see a pattern? That's human nature. I don't know if men are not in touch with reality. They don't want people to judge them. Just like a killer coming to tell a woman that I'm a killer, I've killed 100 people, and you expect the woman to just take it in and that's okay, it's just a story. Oh, you're a brand new human being. No human being on earth is going to take it in that way. I don't think, and even the men themselves are not going to take it in that way. Whoever that hears a story is going to show a level of concern. One, are you still that same person? Have you changed completely? How sure are they that you are a changed person? What are the tendencies of you going back to that old character? We are humans, but men don't want that. But this is the reality of life. That's the reality. It's better you keep your secret to yourself than tell those dirty secrets, because the truth of the matter here is this: people are definitely going to judge you. Depending on the individual, the level of judgment will be different. You don't tell some stories and you don't expect people to react in a certain way. People are definitely going to react. Some people might even put up a performance by not showing you that they are reacting, but deep inside of them, they are bothered, they're reacting, they're asking questions based on the type of stories you shared with them. So men have to come to terms with reality. This is life, this is reality.
Ever contemplated sharing your deepest thoughts and emotions with a tree, or perhaps a woman? An intriguing notion, isn't it? Imagine standing beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient oak, whispering your worries into the wind. The tree doesn't interrupt, judge, or attempt to offer unsolicited advice. It merely stands silent and unchanging, absorbing your words without reaction. This is the allure of sharing with a tree, the certainty of no repercussions, no judgment, just a silent confidant. However, this exchange is a solitary one. The tree, while a steadfast listener, is incapable of empathy or reciprocation. It cannot provide comfort with a knowing nod or shared experience. It's a one-sided conversation, a monologue rather than a dialogue. Now consider sharing those same emotions with
some people of the opinion that this trend is due to the fact that women choose bear over men and men are trying to retaliate. Some called it fragile masculinity, while some said it's childish. What do you think about that?
Ever since the man or bear conversation was popularized by women on TikTok, there has been a popular counter reaction from men regarding would they rather speak to a woman about their feelings or a tree about their feelings. I want to start off by saying that this is not an apt comparison. First of all, the idea of you'd rather talk to a tree than a woman is framing it as a partner, which the man versus bear conversation is not. The man versus bear conversation is about a random man and a random bear, and taking your chances about which one might be more dangerous for a woman to encounter.
So I guess we're doing this now. I knew there was going to be like a fragile masculine response to the whole man or bear trend, but this is in such poor taste. And look, I hear you. It's hard out there as a man emotionally, and men's mental health is a very serious and important discussion we should be having as a society, but this is not how you start that discussion. I've seen a few of these posts around already, so sorry, Salamander, for picking on you specifically for this, but I want to explain in good faith and man to man why this is not how you start a discussion about men's mental health and why this is a bad look. So I know you say it's not about the man versus bear question, but by using bear imagery in your posts, and in the case of other posts, literally starting with the story of the man versus bear question, it sets up this trend as a continuation or successor or response to the man versus bear question, and that has some problematic implications. But first off, it comes off as invalidating or dismissing by setting it up as a response or continuation of the trend, by suggesting that the man versus bear trend and the discussion associated with it has run its course, right? It's essentially saying, you know what? We've listened to you talk about your problems and we've had enough of that. It's our turn to talk about our problems.
Using the woman versus tree argument is not the flex you think it is. I'm going to tell you what, versus tree argument was developed after the man versus bear. Men got so butthurt and offended, all their big feelings hurt. Women were picking the bear. Me as a woman, that's a real red flag. That you see that debate, you read the comments, your instant responses. Well, women hurt men too. Why are you so defensive? Woman versus tree was a standalone argument. I would completely agree with you. Your feelings are totally valid. Men can be victims and women can be awful. It's not. It's being used to invalidate the feelings of women towards the bear. Have a bad experience with a woman, I would have thought that would have made you a better advocate and a better ally, and you would believe women. Do you bring this same energy defending not all men, empathising and advocating for women? Or is this just another tactic to make it all about men? I hate to break it to you, men, but statistically speaking, men offend at much, much higher rates than women. You're more likely to be attacked by a man than you are a woman. You're also more likely to be attacked by a man than you are to be falsely accused. So we're not comparing apples with apples here, even when you ignore the vindictiveness of the woman versus tree debate. It's not the oppression Olympics. If your mate got mugged, you wouldn't say, well, I broke my leg last June. It isn't a competition.
It's quite interesting to see men blame women for their inability to express themselves emotionally. They are capitalizing on the reactions they've gotten from some women so far. But I think that is not supposed to be the focus, because women are not the cause of the problem. Women are not the only humans on this planet. If women are failing you, then you should turn to your fellow men and express yourself, but that is not the case. They struggle to express themselves to both male and female. So how are women the cause of the problem here? The main problem is from the society. Societal expectations, gender norms, cultural conditioning, masculinity norms. So they should pour their anger, their frustration on the society. They should blame themselves for allowing themselves to be conditioned by the society. They should focus on how to fix that rather than cast their blames and frustration on women. From a very young age, boys have been often taught to be stoic, tough, and self-reliant. Phrases like boys don't cry, men don't cry reinforces the idea that expressing yourself as a man is weak. Traditional masculinity emphasizes on traits such as control, strength, independence. Emotional expression, particularly vulnerability, is perceived to be contrary to those traits.
The conversation of speaking to a woman about your feelings or speaking to a tree about your feelings touches on the idea that men are often mocked for showing vulnerability. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that isn't true. Yes, there are a lot of very awful standards that men are expected to live up to. However, those standards are not women's fault, and it is not women's responsibility to fix them. It is men's responsibility to fix them. Why is the hypothetical tell your feelings to a woman or to a tree? Why can't you tell your feelings to a dude, to a man, to your friends? Why don't you feel comfortable having these conversations with your friends? It isn't women's responsibilities to hear you out, to take on your emotional burdens. Now, you might want that from your partner. In fact, you might expect that from your partner. But again, this conversation is not framed about partners. The man versus bear thing is random man, random bear. So if we're talking about a random woman that you're telling your feelings to, why are you telling your feelings to a random woman? And if it's not a random woman, why don't you go tell your feelings to your friends? Again, it is not an apt comparison, and I don't want to sound like I am taking away the real problem that is men's suicide rates. But again, we as men should be speaking to each other and not only expecting the full emotional burden of everything that we think to fall on female partners. Obviously, I'm gay, so that doesn't really count for me, but I'm speaking here to the heterosexual brothers. It is super fine and dandy for men to discuss the troubles of men. That is totally fine, but we do not have to wait until women bring up very valid problems about how men treat them for us to turn around and say, but what about the men? What about the men? We can talk about these things amongst ourselves to women without it having to be a reaction to something that they're telling us. And if you are not interested in having these conversations outside of it being a rebuttal to women, then you are not interested in these conversations at all. You are simply interested in not listening to women. And if that's where you're coming from, you need to do a lot of thinking before you start trying to have these conversations at all.
Without even opening up the comments, obviously I knew the men were going to pick the tree. Why? Why would men pick the tree? Men are going to pick that tree over and over again, and understandably so, because they don't have permission to feel. They never have. They don't have safe places to express their emotions. And they especially don't feel safe expressing their emotions to a woman. Why? Men are conditioned to believe that they have to not be a bitch, to man up, don't cry like a woman, things like this. A marker of masculinity is not crying. Not to me, and not to most women. In fact, most women I know value sensitivity in a man, because that's what divine masculinity truly is. I feel safer with a man who honors his internal landscape and his emotional experience. And I especially honor if he knows how to appropriately communicate that with me. The conversation is just based off of women don't allow me to. Women don't allow me to share my emotions. But the truth of the matter is, systemic patriarchy has not allowed you to speak to women or anyone, any gender, even yourself, about your feelings. And that is the global issue right now. Like, that's the actual issue of why we're here collectively. Men have been fed over millennia a very narrow lens of what masculinity looks like, to a detrimental degree for our societies, for our species. Men don't even have a choice. They are born into the system.
She's right. Women should not be blamed. Women should not feel the brunt of it because it's not our fault. And speaking for the good women out there, not the wicked ones, because we have the good, the bad, and ugly in all genders. And speaking for the good ones that are making effort to be there for their men. So women should not be blamed. Rather, men should channel their frustration to the system, patriarchy. I know people would say, oh, patriarchy, men created a system, so why are men frustrated? Yeah, men created a system, but not all men came together to create that system. Some men were here before other men. So those men that were there when the system was created the system for themselves. Greed is the key word here. They created a system to benefit them, and in the system they are using other men to make profit. A lot of men, or most men, came into this world and they got forced into the system without their permission, without their consent. They got enrolled into the program. As an adult, I don't expect you as a man to keep blaming the system. It is your decision, your choice. If you're still in that system, you should pull yourself out of the system and learn what you've been taught and learn new things that will make life easier for you. So the patriarchy system should be blamed because men have been heavily conditioned. They can't express themselves freely. Women are not the cause of the problem. If women were to be the cause of the problem, then it should be easy for you to express yourself to your fellow men. Men can't even express their emotions to their fellow men because their fellow men will be so quick to say, man up. Men don't cry. Why are you acting like a weakling? So women are doing their best. Don't blame women. Blame it on the society and yourself. Focus on being a better version of yourself and don't let the society control you.
Okay, in my defense, I thought it was a joke. I never actually heard any discourse of men saying, would you rather tell your feelings to a woman or a tree? I thought this was just a little silly little haha we're all having. But no, it's a thing. Sure, it's completely reactionary, but it's a thing. And as a man who has feelings and who has spoken to women, I guess it's my job to set the record straight a little bit. If you tell your feelings to a woman in a way in which case they weren't meant to silence her in what she was saying, then they usually listen pretty well, because people are more willing to listen to things and take them seriously when they're not just constantly weaponized. You want to speak about the anger and frustration you feel inside because you've never been able to process your emotions, so everything comes out in the one form that you are comfortable with? Don't do it in the middle of another argument to try to intimidate them to not speak about that subject. You want to talk about that trauma that you have that affects you in ways that you cannot explain? Maybe don't bring that up when you are trying to explain away a misdeed. Are you really sad and having bad thoughts, which happens to a lot of us? Maybe don't bring that up when they tell you that they don't want to speak to you anymore, and this is a way to get them to care. You know what I mean? If you sit down and you give your feelings the space they deserve, which is not in the middle of a conversation about something else, or when you're being held accountable for something, or when they're talking about the feelings that they have, then they will be much more likely to listen to you than a tree. And I know this. I speak to trees all the time. Do I feel understood and heard? No, but I really like trees. I really like trees. And you may not think that you do this because no one teaches you the proper time to speak about your emotions. So when they do get brought up, it is mostly in a reactionary way, much like this trend. And if that is the only time you're okay talking about your emotions, of course you don't feel heard. Think about this app when you have a woman or a feminine perceived person talking about their issues and you have some faceless comment there saying, what about men's suicide rate? Then getting upset that people don't care about men's suicide rate. No, you're weaponizing it. Or imagine your partner did something really shitty and you're like, that hurt me. And halfway through they're like, well, my dad hurt me. Okay, we can have a conversation about that then, but you're only bringing this up to sidetrack this. Of course you won't feel heard. You got to speak about your emotions in a mindful way, not in just a way to silence someone else.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would love to watch the conversation that triggered this trend, the bear versus man conversation that triggered this trend, watch this video here. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.